Open Championship begins again tonight. The first players teeing off. It's 11:30 p.m. Pacific, so 2:30 a.m. Eastern. So while you're asleep on the East Coast, this tournament will start. So make your bets this evening. Matt, it's golf's fourth and final major. John Rahm is the short shot. You and Kelley bet these via model. Let's start at the top. What are you looking for? Describe the course to us. What are you looking for in a golfer?
You see the pictures right here on your screen. I mean, this is Royal St. George's in Kent, England, 7,204 par 70. So this thing's hosted for 14 Opens. Last played in 2011 here, where Darren Clark won at 5 under. We're going to get 156 players, top 70 in ties, not 65 in ties, top 70 in ties in this. And we're not getting all of the best players. Withdrawals: Bubba Watson, Zach Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama for COVID reasons. Matt Wolff pulled out for just whatever reason, didn't say anything. Kevin Na pulled out because he didn't like the restrictions that were going on over there with the bubble situation. And then Siwoo Kim and Sung J M both pulled out because they are trying to medal at the Olympics so they can dodge having to do their 2-year service in the armed forces over there. So there are all of those.
That is wild. I will not be rooting for anybody more at the Olympics than those guys.
Yeah, seriously. For sure.
They'll get a medal. I mean, a bronze. Let's have one of our guys win the gold. But bronze. They can bronze.
A medal. Yeah, bronze
is fine. But as Kelley put up on the screen there, I mean, this course is going to be laid out really, strategically placed bunkers that are these gigantic, deep pot bunkers, and nothing on the fairway is laid out flat. I mean, it's going to be sloping fairways. Every single lie and or stance is going to be somewhat kind of awkward, for these guys. And unlike a lot of links courses, this one at Royal St. George's, so what you usually have in these links courses is they're built on small areas of land. So back in the day, because these things are so old, right, that they just didn't build these gigantic expansive courses. So sometimes holes will kind of run over each other and be super, super close to each other. So you can be errant off the tee and end up on just another fairway. Now you're off and maybe it's weird, but it's not all that penal, right? Well, it's different here at Royal St. George. There's actually rough, So if you're errant off the tee, you're actually going to end up in rough, and you're not going to have this optimal situation just sitting out on another fairway.
And not just rough, some high stuff too.
Yeah,
because you get some knee-high grass and stuff that you're
doing. Yeah, because they've gotten some rain over there, and with that is one of the guys that I was listening to this morning said the thing that's very different about just the rough that's over there now compared to what you've even seen when this course was played in 2011 is the fact that they've had so much rain recently that there grows this little underlayer underneath the longer stuff that that stuff kind of just retains the moisture.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And then it's just incredibly hard to just chop it out of there. And so now to get into that super deep stuff, you're going to have to be way out. There's a first cut and a second cut, there is a lot of these other things. So you'll have to be way off of the fairway, but still, if you do get out there, I mean, it's basically a penalty stroke for you. In all that. These greens are going to play super tricky because just like the fairways, things are going to be sloping and multi-leveled, and it's going to be one of those things like we talked about many times. Greens in regulation here, the last time they played was sub 56%. So I mean, it's just very, very hard to get the ball to stay on these greens. Last 7 Open winners were all in the top 7 for the week in scrambling, if that lets you know anything. They had to be awesome scramblers to try to get up and down from the ball rolling off these greens. If you're wondering which type of players fit into that, the guys who are top 15 in that area in this field, Patrick Reed, Justin Thomas, Oosthuizen, Bezuidenhout, who I'm on, Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, Cam Smith, Jordan Spieth just outside the top 15 at 16th. In the field when it comes to being able to scramble really, really well in these conditions. Weather is going to play a huge factor here. This is the thing that I'm sure if you listen to Gill's shows all week long, if you listen to any of the guys that we've talked to, I mean, it's going to be a huge factor here. You're looking at the weather right now. I'm looking at this wind tower that is the closest one.
We are every golf bettor in the world has the one link to this one weather tower up in one of their tabs.
And with that, it does look like the afternoon tee times are going to get a little bit better of it than the morning tee times in round 1. After that, everything's pretty steady for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it does look like the it does look like the afternoon tee times here are going to definitely get the better of it when it comes to the gusts as well. Like 20 to 26 mile an hour gusts in the earlier rounds, to where in those afternoon ones, it looks like it kind of settles down to more in that 15 to 18 range. And again, there's a massive difference between a 15 mile an hour gust and a 26 mile an hour gust. It can blow your ball all over the place as far as where it can go. So if you're looking for golfers that do have those afternoon tee times on Thursday, maybe if you want to make some of those first round leader bets, because maybe your first round leader comes from some of these afternoon tee times. Jason Day, Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Matt Fitzpatrick, Colin Morikawa, Charlie Hoffman, Russell Henley, Tyrrell Hatton, Xander Schauffele, Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood, Adam Scott, Rory McIlroy, and Patrick Reed all have afternoon flight times tomorrow. So again, if you're into playing those kind of first round leader, you can at least look at maybe that group of people.
Yeah, and it's that stuff's tricky, because I think the other thing worth pointing out here, Matt, is like this is like the kind of weather we're dealing with in this area of the world. It can change so much. So I mean, I think that's something I definitely looked into as far as guys that I was trying to target. But you don't want to overthink it too.
No.
You know what I mean?
For sure. I'm with you. But it's just, it's one of those things like, especially for like a first round leader.
Yeah, then it's super important.
If it looks like there's not going to be any difference in the morning or afternoon for the rest of this tournament, if you can like get the slightest of edges because you think that it's going to be a little bit more favorable conditions in the afternoon, then, it's something I'm willing to look at if I'm going to play one of these first round leader type bets. But as far as stats that I looked at, Kelley, maybe you looked at something different from me, but I'm off the tee here. Is one of the first things that I looked at. Strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, as we always do. Strokes gained around the green got a pretty heavy piece of the pie for me this week. I did ball striking. I did a very small amount on sand saves just because I do want to see which guys play better out of the sand, especially considering that if you get in one of these pot bunkers, like it could be really, really bad for you. I mean, this is one of the things where you're going to see this week, depending on where it lands in these bunkers, Gill, like if it rolls up to the very front, they're going to play sideways or backwards or whatever. Like you're just not going to be able to hit the ball forward, out of this thing. So
that's what makes these courses so fun.
It's going to be neat. Yeah, like you're going to line up and there's going to be a guy facing backwards,
and there's a lot of
hitting the ball backwards.
There's a lot of those that are right around the green. So those are like, Matt, those are why like approach is so important. Like approach is important always, but on different courses, it's important for different reasons. And that on this course is one of the most important reasons, because you got to be able to get on the green. Don't hit it in one of those greenside bunkers, because it might take you 4 shots just to get out of there.
And even that, the reason why I think around the green and scrambling is so important. So by the way, proximity 75 to 100 scrambling, and then I did a very, very small amount on bogey avoidance as well. But the reason scrambling and around the green is so important, because you can hit an awesome approach shot, but it hits one of those weird like crevices or hits one of those weird undulations, and it's going to roll off the green anyway. Like it's going to just bounce off. You're going to get a weird bounce as it is. So you have to be able to be comfortable. You have to be one of these dudes that's kind of cool, calm, and collected. Like the 2 years ago version of John Rahm, I'd have faded like all over the place, because this was a guy who was like close to breaking a club every single time that like something didn't go his way. Now seems like he's gotten a little bit more perspective on life and has chilled out a little bit more.
What was Brooks Koepka's line about this course?
Yeah, he was like, I don't really like this course all that much.
I don't really like this.
I don't really like
Now watch him come out and just destroy it.
Bubba Watson, who's not playing this week, he was asked about it. He's like, I hope it rains a ton and it's really windy, because I'm not going to be there this week.
So I mean, looking at the top of the odds here, I mean, listen, I'm on a lot of these chalky guys. I know Reed Fowler was saying that he didn't like all of that. I mean, look, you look back at Darren Clark, and yeah, he came out of nowhere to win in 2011. But like I kind of said jokingly to him, but I honestly believe this. I mean, in 2011, you have to think about this. It was 10 years ago. These guys are all 25, 26 or younger, and all. They were either in middle school. Like Victor Hovland's 23, he was in middle school. I mean, like, so these guys it's just a different breed of golfer that are teeing it up this time around, 10 years later. And it's a much deeper pool as well of golfers, of really good golfers as well. So like Jordan Spieth is one of the guys top of my card. 11 finishes a T19 or better in his last 13 starts. He has 6 starts since his win at Valero, And of those, he's gained with the driver, the irons, and around the green. And all 6 of those, he's got 3 top 10s since that win as well. Him, Rory, and Brooks are the only players with 3 top 10 finishes in the last 5 British Opens as well. And he's 7 for 7 in cuts made in these Open Championships. And so you look at a guy that is good around the green, is creative, that I think is going to be able to understand how to deal with these weird lies and weird stances. You know what other course has kind of some weird lies and weird stances and stuff like that? Augusta National. Augusta National is a place that Jordan Spieth has had a ton of success, and so really like Jordan Spieth at the top of the board. I mean, you see these guys. I mean, it looks like I'm playing like a chalk fest here, but I mean,
I was going to say, just define for folks what you mean by championship player pool. Does this mean that you have them all in outrights, or you just have them spread out in all kinds of
So
bets?
I have outrights on obviously the top guys. So Koepka, Spieth, Thomas. I played Hovland's in the board. If you've been watching the show long enough, you remember when I was trying to get out in front of Hovland's like heater. And so 5 months ago, I went and just bet Hovland for all the big tournaments because I wanted to get these like fat numbers. And I did get a better number than's available now, not all that much better. But I've had that ticket for five months or whatever, something like that. Outright on Berger and Fowler. Now Burns and Guido and Bezuidenhout, those guys do have outrights on them, but at a smaller amount than all the rest of the guys because their numbers are just outrageously long. Like Burns, I think the shop here in town that I was able to get that, I mean, is like way off market. Like Burns is like 80, 90, 100, maybe 110 to 1. At a lot of places, I got 180 on him.
Oh, wow.
You know, so
Jeez.
it's you know, again, way off market with stuff like that. Kelley, did you look at anything differently from me from stats wise?
Stat wise, sounded like we were pretty much very, very similar. I did weigh a little bit more on some of the putting just because, like, if you're on the green, like, yes, the around the green stuff's going to be crucial. I think the scrambling, I did weigh sand saves a bit, around the green short game, which is around the green and putting, and then opportunities gained. Just because if you get on the green, you know, you got to be able to capitalize on those holes that you are able to get on in a second shot. I want guys that can make some birdies because eventually you're going to have to do that, right? Like a lot of these, especially Open Championship and a lot of major golf we talk about, it's kind of more important to minimize the mistakes, but you do got to score, you know, eventually. So I did weigh putting a little bit more than I guess I was expecting going into it. But yeah, as far as guys I landed on, look, I'm really heavy on Koepka and Spieth, and I'm sorry, I know Matt is, and I'm sure anybody watching out there has been hearing that all week long. It is just. Between statistically how these guys rank in the models that I've run over the last 12, last 24, last 36, between that, their success in Open Championships over the past 5 years, going back, those guys were this just really above almost everybody else that I looked at pretty significantly. So Koepka, Spieth are 2 that I'm on outright wise. I've got them mixed in matchups. I've got them mixed into some top Spieth in top 20. And then other guys, Patrick Reed, I just love. I'm not a big Patrick Reed guy, but I love him on a course like this where you're going to have to be creative. You talked about where he ranks scrambling wise, Matt. He's a guy that can somehow look like he has no chance on a hole off of the tee and somehow recover to make par. And that's a guy I love this week.
Well, that's 2 guys you and I are on together in Koepka.
Yeah, and then one
Reed.
guy I really wasn't expecting to be on this week, but I think I said this a couple weeks ago when I played him. Patrick Cantlay. I really looked at guys who were coming in hot to this tournament. Cantlay, 13th at Travelers, 15th at U.S. Open, won the Memorial, 23 at the PGA, had some missed cuts before that, but this guy's coming in really hot. Last 12 rounds model, he was the tops in my model. And then I chose some guys, Berger, just a massive number, 71 to 1 on a guy that we know can win, and honestly was up there in some of my modeling too. And then my biggest top 20 bet is on Paul Casey. I cannot live through betting another outright on Paul Casey, but my biggest top 20 bet is on him. I love him this week.
Yeah.
Some of those other guys you see on there, Harris English, Russell Henley, Harris English, Reed Fowler hit on it a bit. Both those guys coming in very hot, both incredible players in windy conditions, both done well at Honda Classic and some of the other tournaments we see that wind at. So, yeah, that's everybody I got going this week. But it sounds like you and I are seeing things pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of expand here after the break on a couple of these guys that you and I are on together, because I mean there are some numbers here that back up kind of why in a course like this, in a situation like this, and in these conditions that we think that we're going to see these guys in, that really does. It makes for a play on this guy.
Spieth plus 125 over Xander certainly bucks what so many have said on the network this week. We will expand on those golf thoughts. We'll get to our one and done and our draft. Danielle, you ready? Golf draft coming up. Okay, more golf thoughts from you.
Yeah, I'll talk about the guys we have in common, and then I can expand on some of these other guys when we do the draft. I'll have plays on them. But you know, Kelley's on Patrick Reed, and you know I'm on Patrick Reed as well. I don't like the guy, but you know it is what it is. 2 top 20s in the last 3 opens. Excellent short game. Excellent around the greens. 4th in this field in scrambling over the last 36 rounds, 7th in sand saves, 12th in strokes gained around the green. And then if you go back 50 rounds, so if you want long-term success, you know, 3rd in scrambling in this field, 8th in strokes gained around the green. One of the things Patrick Reed is just known for is being able to just navigate around the greens and have some, as Kelley mentioned, being creative and things like that. And that's one of the things he's been able to do and he's really good at. So I couldn't just leave him out. And then Brooks Koepka, who I have probably the most money on I've had in quite some time.
That was me in the U.S. Open. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking. Yeah. That's Jordan Spieth for me this week.
You know,
more money than I intended.
Top 15 finish in, you know, we talk about this guy being just a major, you know, robot. Top 15 finish in 17 of 21 majors. I mean,
good Lord,
it's a top 15 finish in 17 of 21 majors. He has it combined. He's 84 under at majors since 2016. This is per Justin Ray, which is 63 strokes ahead of the next closest golfer.
They kept showing that graphic during the U.S. Open.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah.
And he ranks number. Oh, it's actually on the. Look at that. It's actually
links courses.
It's actually on the screener.
It's
yes,
not just America.
He's number 1 in both total strokes gained and strokes gained average per round on link style courses in this field. And again, if you want to talk about his form, and maybe it's a little bit under the radar, just whatever, but his form, he was T2 at the PGA, he was T4 at the U.S. Open, and then he was T5 at the Travelers at the end of June. He gained 7.5 strokes ball striking alone in those starts. And like, it's just the guy is built to care more about these majors, and he's going to go over there and he's going to play well. I have no doubt in my mind. He's already doing that whole Brooks thing where he's trying to create his own headlines. Like, you know, we said it last segment, but he goes, Brooks, what do you think of this course? He's like, yeah, I don't really like this course all that much. And they're like, oh, what do you think of it? Oh, I hadn't picked up a club since the Travelers. And then they're like, oh, well, you know, you only have this in the Masters, you know, for career Grand Slam. He's like, yeah, I'd like to win all the majors back to back. He's like, because he's won the other 2 back to back. You know, he's like, so I'd like to win all the majors back to back, and I really like St. Andrews where they're playing next year. So he's like, just basically like,
just messing with people.
Just messing with them, like saying like, yeah, I better go ahead and win this one because I really like the one next year.
And that is why he's the only bet so far in my account.
Yeah, it's like the dude's creating his own headlines. He's like doing stuff to pump himself up.
And Matt, it's one of those that like people underestimate how smart he is. Like, he's a smart dude. Just because he's not a big talker, and like we're always like, oh, he's one of the big hitters. Like, what a meathead, you know? Like, no, Brooks is a smart guy. I've had a couple conversations with him, and he might not be the happiest guy talking to media, but he's a sharp dude.
The other, you know, the thing with me is like I said, selectively fading Rory and full fade on Bryson. Like, Bryson wins this tournament, like, I'll take donations on Venmo or something or whatever. Like, you guys can donate to me or whatever on that. Like, it's everything pointing against him, really. I mean, high ball flight for him. He's plays that gouge and go tournament, and he's just not. Listen, you can't do that here. You're gonna land these pot bunkers. You're gonna get in that deep rough like we're talking about. Like, you just can't do the gouge technique here. It's just not going to work. And so I just don't see him changing that. I mean, who knows? Maybe he comes out and he hits it head high from like, and like he's just, I
agree with everything Matt Brown just said. However, if you want to bet him at like 38-1, which
I don't blame you.
Pop up, I cannot. No,
that's the other thing. It's like, but the number has gotten to a point now to where someone says, I want to bet him outright. I'd be like, I would either bet him. That's the only way I'd bet him outright. Because he's either going to contest for winning this thing or he's going to be going home on Saturday.
38-1. How far we have fallen in such a short time on Bryson.